to Reflections of 80. Today we're going to take a little bit of detail, and I'm going to tell you 4 stories about people who came to United States for their graduate education. So a lot of time we think that there's just one particular way of doing things, but that is not the case. And even in graduate education, in your application process, even the time that you come to school, it can vary from person to person. So the stories involves what the student did to get funding, to get the admission into the schools, and also to secure funding as well. And the stories had students coming to school at different times of the year. So some of them came in the fall semesters, others in the spring semesters, and some in the summer semesters. So there is no one fit all solution for your applications. So if you're excited about it, as I am, join me as I share you these 4 stories. I'm going to start with mine. So my story starts like this. I was fortunate enough to have a professor give me schools in the United States that he wanted me to attend. He was like, he doesn't want me to go to any country apart from United States. Even though I applied to schools in the UK, Canada, and Australia, he gave me 10 schools that he thought would be good for me. So I had a head start on the schools to apply for. I did not apply to all the schools. I did apply to quite a few of them. I applied to Princeton, to Georgia Tech, to University of California, Berkeley because of MasterCard Foundation, and I also applied to Cornell and Columbia. Georgia Tech was the first school to respond, give me an offer, and the offer actually came on February 3rd. That was very early. So I just accepted to go to Georgia Tech. All the others, unfortunately, I didn't even get it anyways. But then I had already made my decision to come to Georgia Tech because of the weather and also because of the funding that they had provided for me. So coming over here, they gave me 1-year funding through graduate teaching assistantship, meaning that I'll support faculty in teaching. So basically what I was doing is to grade and also organize office hours and proctor exams, that is invigilate exams. So that's what I was doing. Through that, my tuition fee was waived, and I was also given a monthly stipend to live on, and that was for 3 semesters. So per the contract that I was given to me by Georgia Tech, after a year, that is for the ECE department. Other department in the school is very different. So for ECE department, when I was going to Georgia Tech, the requirement is that once you get to campus, you get to talk to professors and work for them, and the professor will take on your funding from there. So I came, the very first semester was very hard. It was very hectic because we had this preliminary exams. Oh my God, it was an exams of 22 questions, and you are required to answer 8 questions, and all the questions were based on electrical engineering undergraduate courses. So I wanted to do it in the first semester. I just put all into it, and I was not sleeping, like day in, day out. I was just studying over and over again. Some of the courses that we did in my undergrad, I was able to read over them, but just that the Georgia Tech syllabus had more depth than what my school taught me. So it means even the courses that I have done in undergrad, I had to go and refresh and learn more about it. And there were some of the courses that we did not do, or I did not do in my undergrad, so I had to learn a whole new courses again. So basically it was very hard, it was very tough. So I didn't really have the time to look for professors, and I was taking classes as well, and also TAs. There was a lot of things I was doing in at that moment, so I didn't bother myself looking for a professor or anything like that. So in the second semester, I decided to work with a professor through a program that we have here called Special Problems. And in the special problems, what happens is that you work with a professor. he gives you a topic for you to research on, and at the end of the semester, you will see whether you like the professor, and he will also see whether he likes you. And if he likes you and you like the professor, you guys he can work for him in his lab. Unfortunately, I was not able to work in that lab. That professor is even retired before I completed school, and because he didn't have funding to support me, so I didn't. So it means that I have come back to square one again looking for an advisor. But fortunately, after first year, there was an email blast about a professor looking for a master's student to do research for her. And I was not a master's student, but I needed funding, So I emailed back, I met her requirement, and we started working together. So after the funding was over, I had to go back to TA-ship, and I was fortunate enough to get my other scholarships to help me through the program. So that's how I ended up with my professor. So I came in the fall semester, and I was through the process, I was able to get my professor. So this is my story. So this next story I'm going to talk to you about is a friend who's actually done with her school. She actually got an advisor before coming to the United States. She had a friend in this university. The guy was doing a different program than what she was doing, but just that there's this new professor that came to the school who was a friend to the guy's professor or advisor, and was just asking them if they knew students that would want to work with her. So it was like, oh, okay, I have a friend who is not currently in the school, but she's a very good student and you can work with her. So they started communicating back and forth, and then they realized that, okay, they were a good match. So she asked her to apply to the school, which she did apply to the school, and she came over, and that's how her journey began. So you can see she didn't have to go through the struggles I went through, because her funding was kind of secured before she came to the university, and it was to a friend. So if you have a friend out there in the university that you think can help you out with a lab or doing a similar course, you can reach out to the person. If you don't know the person's email address because it's been long, or because you didn't really have that rapport with the person, just go on LinkedIn and look for the person's information, reach out to the person. You may never know who will be able to connect you with a professor. The third story is about a friend who actually schooled in Florida and United States of America. He also got funding, but then his story is a little bit different. So he did his master's degree in Ghana, and he wanted to continue to United States. So what he did is that he went to the university's website looking for professors and writing to them. Obviously, some of them did not apply, but he got 2 responses from University of Mississippi and University of Florida, Gainesville. And so both professors were interested in working with him because of the research he has done in his master's program. And finally, he settled on University of Florida. But then he was also able to establish with them by writing to the professors, and the professors agreeing to kind of work with him. So once he was able to establish that, he knew that the application is just a formality to go through, because the professor will actually give him a word for him to be admitted, and that's how he got his admission and he got his funding. So writing to a professor, as I've mentioned earlier on in my channel, you want to make sure that if you're writing to a professor about funding, you make sure that what you are doing aligns with what the professor is doing, because definitely the money he has there should align with your interest. And write it in such a way that it is simple, it is concise, it is short enough for the professor to read. If it's a lot, it's like we're writing an essay. Nobody has the time to read that, but make sure that you write it in such a way that it is interesting, that the professor will respond to you. So that is the story of a friend. He actually came to school in the summer semester instead of the fall semester, so then the timing can be very different for different people. And the last story is about a friend who is in Yale. So his story is like different from all of us. He also did his master's degree in Ghana. So while he was doing his master's degree program, there was actually a conference for historians, because he was doing history, master's in history in Ghana. And so this conference, he was there to present his research. And there was this professor from one of the Californian universities at the conference. He actually liked what this guy's master's thesis was about. So after the conference, they spoke. I was like, oh my God, I have a colleague in the US, in Yale University, who is doing this research, you know. So I think it'd be a very interesting research that you can work with the professor. So why don't you get my information and contact me, and I'll be able to link the two of you together. And that's how his breakthrough actually came about. So he kept in touch with that professor, they communicated, and he was able to link him up with a Yale professor. The Yale professor liked him. But this time around, there was no guarantee that he was going to get a place in Yale. So the professor told me that, I like what you do, I have money to fund you, but then the school should accept you first. So he had to go through the normal process like everybody else. And for his college, it was a little bit different, unlike mine and the others that you didn't have to do any interview with any panel before being admitted. After his application, he had to be interviewed with the rest of the applicant as well. And by God's grace, he was able to get through it. And once he came, because he has already established that relationship with the professor picked him up, and now he is working with the professor in his lab. So now you can see that there are different ways you can get funding from a professor. There are different ways to get admission into the school. I use a route a lot of people do, just apply blind application. I didn't contact any professor at my school. I did contact some professors in other schools, especially in UK and in Australia and in Canada. But in US, some of the schools do not require you to do that. So I didn't do that. But there are other people that they actually came to US they took that step first to contact them, or even through friends, and they were able to get admission and to do their PhD program. So I just hope these stories will just give you insight about what to do to make sure that you can go for it, and you can reach out to professors, you can go through the normal process, and you can still get admission. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you subscribe to my channel and you like this video and comment. I want to know you. I want us to get interactive. So you can also follow me on Instagram and we can chat more over there. Thank you so much for your time.